I have a bit of a headache. I don't have a ton of time, but I really wanted to do my review for the Godzilla King of the Monsters official soundtrack. Now, I'm not going to do a rating in this video, which you're like, you're doing a soundtrack review, you're not even going to rate it. The reason I'm not going to rate it is because I haven't seen it in context of the film yet. This is going to be my thoughts on the music itself outside of the film, because obviously I don't know how this works in the movie yet. So I will do this review and it will be my thoughts on the soundtrack by itself, which I think is a cool opportunity that you don't usually get with movies. So I'll review the soundtrack on its own, and then once the movie comes out, I will talk about the soundtrack in context of the movie, and then that'll be my final thoughts on it. But here, I'm gonna go song by song, and we're gonna talk about how I think about it. But anyways, let's talk about the soundtrack that Bear McCreary did using themes from Yūji Koseki and Akira Ifukube. Jumping into it with the first song on the album. Why? Why is this the first song? This really feels out of place being the first one. This should have been the last one. I don't know why it's first. Godzilla by Serj Tankin. It is the Blue Oyster Cult Godzilla cover done for this movie with Bear McCreary as composer and Serj Tankin as singer. I have done a full video breaking down that and the song Old Rivals, and I legitimately break them down. So if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on that song, go watch that other video. If you just want to hear what I think about it generally, well, here you go. I think it's awesome. It's a great way to kick off the soundtrack with a bang. Again, it feels like it should be the last one on here, but I guess they were like, man, just put it at the start. Kicks it off with a bang. It's a lot of fun. The singing could be better. It's a little nasally if you ask me, but it's okay because it's really cool. There's a lot of epic moments in it that I love. Speaking of epic moments that I love, Godzilla main title. What? It took me by complete surprise. We knew that the Ifukube music was going to be in the movie. We actually have heard this song before. It was played at Tokyo Comic-Con. But like, why is this so soon? Is this really how the movie starts? I feel like it is, and that is going to be amazing. If this is how the movie starts, God, what a way to start on a high note. That'll be great. It is the perfect way to redo Ifukube's music too, because he hardly touched it. It's just Ifukube's music brought back to life in the modern day. Oh, it's a great way to continue the legacy. The new additions to the song are also really cool. It's got a lot of really, the only word I can use is epic pieces to it that amplify the original. It doesn't, I don't think it's better than the originals. I would prefer to listen to some of the other ones over this, but this is still amazing. That's like, yeah, of course I'm going to be like, well, because I have a nostalgic spot for the version of this that plays in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah in 1991. So yeah, I want to listen to that one a little more, but still, this is amazing. I like the choir. It's growing on me. I didn't initially like it, but I do like the choir. I think it's awesome. There is one tweak that why is this a problem? Why do I need to fix this? I fixed it for you because it's an issue with the song that drives me crazy every time I hear it. It's actually an issue every time they use Godzilla's more villainous theme song, which is also like, you get the normal Godzilla theme, you know, the one that they used in Ready Player One, the one that everyone associates with Godzilla. You get that, and it's like, I get it. That can be a heroic theme. We heard it heroic in Terror of Mechagodzilla. It's been a heroic theme throughout the Showa era, throughout the Heisei era, and in the Millennium films. It has always been associated with some hero moments for Godzilla, even though it's been used for some villainous moments as well, and it didn't even start out as Godzilla's theme song. It was originally a military march, but that's a different point. I'm not used to hearing the villain Godzilla theme song used in a heroic way. It has been used in movies where Godzilla's an anti-hero before, so we'll see how it's worked in context of this movie, but on its own, whenever I hear it, I go, yeah, that's Godzilla sounds like he's very menacing whenever that song plays. It, like, that is what I picture, is like, Godzilla is going to be menacing during all this, which great. If he's going to be menacing while fighting Ghidorah, I mean, he's going to have to be, right? Otherwise, he's going to look puny. So, sure, if you want this awesome music to accompany Godzilla on a hero's journey, that's really cool. It's a very different use of the song than I'm used to. But there is a problem with it, like, why do I have to fix it? I don't know, but I fixed it for you. Tell me if you can spot what I did. Did you hear it? I just added in those notes that are missing. Like, why are they missing? It drives me crazy. It's like I've grown so used to hearing this same thing for the past however many years I've been alive, and now you change it on me? You can't do that, Bear McCreary. What the heck? Anyways, this is an amazing song. I absolutely love it. This next song on the soundtrack is not one of my favorites. It's Memories of San Francisco. It's very moody and haunting, but my biggest problem with it is that it's way too reminiscent of Pacific Rim Uprising, and like, I'd rather not be reminded of that movie's soundtrack, because that is definitively the weakest part of Pacific Rim Uprising, is the soundtrack is just not that great. So when I hear the song Memories of San Francisco, it's like, it's also, I would have expected a little more emotion in it. It's not as emotional as I would have liked it to be, even though, you know, I gotta wait to see it in context of the film, which is, again, it's me just judging these before I've actually seen it fully, which is why I'm not giving it a rating, because I feel like I'm only doing a partial review here. I'm only reviewing the music, not the way it's worked into the film. Next song, The Larva. Oh, this song is awesome. This song would fit in perfectly with Godzilla 2014. It sounds just like Alexander Desplat's music, which is great. I'm upset that Desplat's Godzilla theme does not make a return at all. It's not even heard even slightly through this soundtrack, but at least this song sounds like it could have come straight from 2014, which I appreciate. Gives some musical continuity here. The ending of this song was the first one of any of these to give me chills, and I mean, we're 4 songs in, but I got chills when I heard it. So cool. Great use of Yūji Koseki's Mothra theme song. I love it. And as we'll talk about at the end here, Mothra steals the show. She is really the MVP of this soundtrack by a long shot. This is an interesting one, this next song, Welcome to Monarch. Originally, I didn't like it. The first thing I wrote down, and I was taking notes while listening to this, so all these notes are like my reactions to the music. The first thing I wrote down is Monarch's weakest theme. Like, I listened to it and I went, the 2014 opening, that's kind of the Monarch theme, better. And Project Monarch from Kong Skull Island, better. Now, in retrospect, that is not true at all. Although I do like Project Monarch more because, oh, it's so good. This is significantly more fun to listen to than the Godzilla 2014 opening theme. It's just a lot more fun to listen to. I think I like it more. Good on ya, Bear McCreary. It grew on me a lot. This is a really cool song. It's got great energy, really cool heroic-esque sounding moments, and it truly does capture the feel that Michael Dougherty has been talking about for a while, which is Monarch is the human Avengers. The Monsterverse, they don't have the Avengers. Monarch is their version of the Avengers, and you can hear it when you listen to this, because it does sound just like something you'd hear in Endgame. If you know the song Portals from Endgame, the back half of it is the Avengers theme song, leave that alone, but swap the first half of Portals with the first half of Welcome to Monarch, and it actually works better in context of Avengers Endgame. It's just a lot cooler. Outpost 32. Oh, here's where we get into the weakest bit of the soundtrack, and that is Ghidorah and Rodan. They are the weakest part of the soundtrack by a lot. Outpost 32 is kind of like long. There's a lot of ups and downs in it. There's some really good moments that I like, but I think it's gonna be one of those songs that just works in context of the scene and doesn't really work out of the context of the scene. Doesn't wind up on my best of playlist. Same thing with Icebreaker. It's intense and exciting, but I don't love it. I think the choir is really cool, the way they use the choir for all of this. The lack of harmony between the chanting, especially during Rise of Ghidorah, which is the next song. It's a really cool use of that because it almost embodies Ghidorah in that it's like all these different voices that aren't quite synced up to each other, but are still doing the same thing. Kind of the way you have the 3 heads that are all their own different personalities, but all have one common end goal. I like the idea, but I'm not a big fan of this Ghidorah music. And, you know, you hear it here as well in Rise of Ghidorah. It's a lot like Outpost 32 and Icebreaker. It's almost like those 3 songs are one continuous song, and they're not as good or atmospheric as the Ifukube music. I can think of Ifukube Ghidorah music that is a lot scarier and more atmospheric, a lot more intense, and I can think of a lot more exciting and more iconic Ghidorah music that will stick with you and that you can hum. You can't hum anything from these 3 songs. You can hum Ghidorah's old theme song. Old Rivals. Again, I've reviewed this song already, but wow, this really has changed. Originally, I was like, it's okay. I'm not going to want to listen to it a lot. It's one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack. It's got great energy. It has a great mix between 2014, 2019, and Ifukube. It's just really cool. And when I say 2014, that build-up moment at the very start that does come straight from 2014, it's exciting and energetic. I love Ifukube's theme song being used in it. I love the way they use it. The song First Gods is kind of forgettable in my opinion. It's pretty moody, but other than that, I don't have much to say about it. Rodan's theme song is probably the weakest theme on the soundtrack. I don't know if it's the weakest song on the soundtrack. First Gods might be. But Rodan's theme, it's not what I would have wanted for Rodan. It doesn't feel powerful. It just, I don't know. I have a lot of problems with it. I really do want to love it. There is some pretty cool parts in it, but it's just kind of all right. Like, there's good use of percussion, but I don't picture anything powerful happening over. I can't picture this in context of the scene that I know it plays during. This is when Rodan wakes up from the volcano. He's gonna cause some damage, and it just kind of sounds like generic adventurous music. I don't feel intensity from it at all. It doesn't stand apart from songs 6 through 8 on the soundtrack, from the Ghidorah Rising music. Doesn't stand apart from that either. It sounds very similar to those, and it's just nowhere near as iconic or memorable as the Ifukube stuff. And I know it's so hard to top that. Like, you're never gonna, and so it's kind of unfair for me to make that comparison, but it doesn't stand out to me. It just doesn't. And I really wanted to love the Rodan music, but I just don't like Rodan's stuff in this movie. And we'll talk about Rodan's theme song when it returns again. I think it is better when it returns later because it's kind of a callback moment, but at least here in the Rodan theme itself, I'm like, it sounds a little too generic and exciting and happy and upbeat for what I know is happening on screen. So I'm really gonna have to see it in context before I can make a final call on it. And that's really the thing with the songs that I dislike in this movie, is the songs on the soundtrack that I'm not a big fan of right off the bat. I'm sure once I see them in context of the film, I'll be like, oh, that is way cooler than I was expecting. The song A Mass Awakening, this one, it takes you on a journey, doesn't it? Starts with a bang. It got a lot of really spooky stuff in the middle here once it slows down. I love the atmosphere and the mood. And then you hit Mothra's part, and it's just, oh, she steals the soundtrack. What did I tell you? She really does steal the soundtrack. It's great. The song The One Who Is Many is Ghidorah's best song on the soundtrack. I have no idea what scene this will play during. I can't even picture what will happen during this, but it's kind of a quiet song, and I really like the quiet stuff. It makes it feel a lot more distinct from the rest of the soundtrack, and also puts you on edge a little more than Ghidorah's other music, so that's a great use of a slowdown right there. I really hope it's used well in the movie. Another song that I hope is used well in the movie, Queen of the Monsters. She steals it. She steals the soundtrack. She's the winner. It feels very GMK inspired, very powerful use of Mothra's Yūji Koseki theme, and it's just elegant and beautiful. It's everything that I wanted it to be. It's so good. Oh, and then this next one is also one of my favorites on the soundtrack, For Andrew. It's slow and short, but it's powerful. I originally wrote down, I was hoping for something as emotional as the beginning part of Back to Ghidorah from Godzilla 2014 soundtrack. It doesn't meet that. It doesn't top the emotion, and that was achieved with nothing but a piano. Like, that's all, like a piano and strings. That beginning of that song from the 2014 soundtrack is so emotional and resonates so well that I really wanted For Andrew to do the same, and it let me down in that regard. But it is really good. It's got a quiet toy box feel to it, which is perfect because it's associated with a child who, spoiler alert, is dead, right? It's not like I got that spoiled for me. We figured that out on our own, and like, there's no way that kid isn't dead. He's dead. Hashtag rest in peace, little Russell. I like the use of the harmony and strings here as well. It's really cool. Next song on the soundtrack, Stealing the Orca. Clearly Madison coming to the decision that she needs to steal the Orca for Andrew. These go back to back. You can even hear a lot of the For Andrew cues used in Stealing the Orca. They've gone from sad to heroic, as clearly Madison Russell is having a big hero moment here. Good energy, has a very kind of spy-esque feel to it, a little bit of like an espionage mission going on. So that'll be cool to see in context of the movie. The Hollow Earth. This one, originally I was like, what is this song gonna play during? Like when all the monsters are waking up? No, that's clearly A Mass Awakening is when the monsters wake up. The Hollow Earth, I think, is gonna be Serizawa and crew discovering Godzilla's underground temple. I think that's what it is. They're like, wow, there really is a hollowed earth. It was like a revelation when I finally realized what it was. I was like, oh, the Hollow Earth is literally Monarch going to the Hollow Earth and finding Godzilla. That is definitely what that's gonna be. It's got a lot more atmosphere than I was expecting, which is great, and it goes very well with the Kong Skull Island soundtrack, which is one of my favorite kaiju soundtracks, so that's awesome. I love that. Good musical thematic continuity in the Monsterverse. Oh, this one, probably the saddest song on the soundtrack, and it's not even probably the saddest moment in the movie, because I think the saddest moment follows this one. The Key to Coexistence. It's just beautiful. I love the mood. It's got so much heart, and it's really sad. It really is. Still not as emotional as some of the 2014 music, but it is emotional, and I'm sure after I see it in context, it'll be even more emotional. And same with this next song. I haven't seen it in context yet, but it is still a sad song. Goodbye, old friend. We all know what happens during that scene. We've all figured it out, and it's heartbreaking. No one wants to see that. I certainly don't want to see that. I've seen it in the original. I don't need to see it again. It was already sad enough there. Don't do it now. But it blends so well with the Key to Coexistence. I actually played the two over each other, played the back half of Key to Coexistence while I started started, Goodbye Old Friend, and they blend perfectly. It's awesome. It has a very strange, almost Christmassy feel to it, at least for me. It reminds me of some of the really sad music you hear in Home Alone, which is interesting, but it's just this really sad, heartfelt song, and it's beautiful. It's powerful and moving, and the choir is great in this song. It's the best use of the choir in the whole movie, and I can't wait to see it in context of the film. It would have made me cry had they used any variation of Prayers for Peace / Godzilla on the Ocean Floor from the original movie. If that had been worked in here even at all, even if we just heard a cue from it, oh, that definitely would have brought me to tears, because it's a sad song, and I guarantee it's an even sadder moment. But you follow it up with a bang. Holy cow, the king is back. Rebirth is one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack, if not, no, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely up there. It's so cool. I love the use of Ifukube's music. It's probably the most epic version of Godzilla's March that we've ever heard. Not me saying it's my favorite version of Godzilla's March, but it's probably the most epic and powerful version of that march. It's got a great use of both Godzilla's March and his main theme, and the ending of it, it's like Requiem from Godzilla vs. Destroy. It's like, why are you trying to break my heart? Isn't this supposed to be the call to arms scene? Probably. Like, isn't that what that's gonna play during? Why is it so sad? I know what just happened is gonna be heartbreaking, but you don't need to bring me down during the coolest song on the soundtrack. Come on. Fog Over Fenway is intense. I really like the Ghidorah choir. You can tell whenever Ghidorah's on screen in this soundtrack, because you get that like almost The Nun-esque, really low bass heavy choir guy, whoever's singing that, like chanting. It's pretty scary. I love that. I can't wait to see it in context. I'm sure this is going to be an intense sequence. But that being said, Fog Over Fenway, I would say is kind of a forgettable song. It's nowhere near as good as Ghidorah's other song, One Who Is Many. Battle in Boston. This one was a bit overhyped for me. Everyone was telling me, you're gonna cry when you hear Battle in Boston. It's amazing. It is really cool. It has grown on me a little bit, and this was actually the only song in the soundtrack that I listened to that got me to audibly squeal. I was driving yesterday listening to the soundtrack for what was my, I think, third time, and I've listened to it about 5 times now. But I was driving and listening to Battle in Boston, and it was like, I got all giddy right at Godzilla's March. So you start out with Godzilla's theme song, which is cool. It's like, oh yeah, I love it. I love the energy, kicking it off with Godzilla, kicking it off with Ifukube. That's great. But then you get the actual Godzilla theme song, and just the way it builds into it, I was literally driving, and I think I went, yes! Like, actually squealed when I heard it. Good on you, Bear McCreary. You got me. So that was really cool. I loved that. I actually liked the use of the choir in this song as well. I think the choir becomes a bit overbearing in a lot of the music here, but it is really cool here. Great use of each monster's individual themes, which is where I was talking about Rodan earlier. You have Godzilla's theme songs from Ifukube worked in here. You have Ghidorah's music. You can clearly tell when Ghidorah's on screen with that choir. You have Mothra's music, which again is amazing, and she really does steal the show at the end of the song. And then you got Rodan's like, you know, you got the drums going off, and you're like, okay, clearly Rodan just showed up. He just joined the fight. That's gonna be awesome to see. So I like the way it's one extended song that mixes together all the other themes. It's actually very similar to what I did, not in terms of the ending product, but in terms of idea. The execution was just completely different. It's very similar to what I did with my original, like, King of the Monsters, or like the Battle for All Earth, or whatever I called it, where I took all my custom themes for King of the Monsters and then I tied them all together in one extended song. Very similar to that. Great intensity, great energy. There's a really sad, slow portion in the middle that I'm sure will be heartbreaking. Why? I don't actually know what's gonna happen during that, but maybe Godzilla gets his butt handed to him a third time by Ghidorah. Holy cow, Ghidorah is just gonna be kicking his butt left and right. And Ghidorah seems to be pretty scary during this sequence based off that choir. But then Mothra's theme, which plays twice during the song. The first time it plays, it's a little bit underplayed, underscored by everything else happening. But then at the very end, you get Mothra's big moment, which I think will be Mothra's big moment in the movie. And so that's gonna be awesome to see. It's gonna be awesome to hear at the same time. Can't wait to hear this movie in Dolby Cinemas. Oh, it's gonna be great. Next song on the soundtrack, Redemption. It had me for a while. So here's what I'll say about the song before I begin to theorize about when it plays. It's got a great 2014 feel right off the bat, has some epic moments, and it does feel powerful and emotional. But I was wondering, who the heck needs redemption so much? I think Mothra's big moment happens before this, so I don't think she's gonna be doing much during the redemption scene. So I'm like, I don't know. Can't be Mothra. Is it gonna be Godzilla finally redeeming himself in a fight with Ghidorah? He's gonna need it after getting beat, well, I think 3 times in the movie. No, I don't think so, because the next song, King of the Monsters, I think is where Godzilla finally redeems himself. So I'm like, what? Who gets redemption here? I have 2 theories. Number 1 is Emma Russell. I think Emma Russell might have a character redemption, because I do think she starts as a good guy. Charles Dance convinces her to be a bad guy, and then in the end, when she says, "Long live the king, laying in the rain," I think she's a good guy again. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's her character death and she redeems herself by like sacrificing herself. That could be I don't actually know she dies. That's just a guess. I'm thinking something like that'll happen, or it's gonna be Rodan. Rodan finally has a redemption moment where he's like, yeah, I tried to fight Ghidorah at the start and I just got beat, but now that Godzilla's here, I can finally come back, and maybe I shouldn't be helping Ghidorah. Maybe I should be helping Godzilla. So it could be Rodan's redemption as well, or it could just be Godzilla's. It really could. It could just be Godzilla like, hey, I'm back and I'm gonna beat you, Ghidorah. But I don't think so, because King of the Monsters. The next song on the soundtrack it's got loads of Ifukube music right in the start and end. So I'm like, it's probably Godzilla finally becoming the King of the Monsters, which will be so nice to see. It's got a great use of the new 2019 Godzilla music, as well as a great use of the choir. It's very grand, and I think this is where Godzilla truly does defeat Ghidorah and truly does redeem himself. Assuming that's what happens. We don't know. Ghidorah could just retreat and fly off into space like he always used to. I don't think so. I think he's dead, but we'll see. All right, now to bring it home with the final two songs on the soundtrack here, Ghidorah's theme. I said I had some controversial things to say about it. It's probably my least favorite Ghidorah theme ever. I feel really bad saying that because I want to love it, but I just think it is. It's got great creepy chanting in it, but it's just not as atmospheric as it could have been. When I think about atmospheric Ghidorah music, which this is clearly what it's trying to be. It's trying to be like moody and scary. When I think of that, I think of some of the Invasion of Astro Monster music, which is like very unsettling. This is going to be the controversial thing. When I really come down to it, the Planet Eater had the best Ghidorah music, in my opinion, just overall. And so I do think it is kind of unfair to compare the music to Ifukube's all the time and say, well, Ifukube's was better, because of course it's iconic and it's ingrained in our minds and it's become nostalgic. But the Planet Eater topped it, in my opinion, and I know not a lot of people are going to agree with that. I think Ghidorah's music in the Planet Eater is the scariest. More importantly, I think Mephi's music in the Planet Eater, that I strongly associate with Ghidorah, because of course it's Mephi's is strongly associated with Ghidorah, I think is very scary. Ghidorah has a very horrifying sequence in that movie, and the soundtrack is perfect during that sequence, and he's just incredibly powerful. The soundtrack overall is incredibly powerful whenever Ghidorah is on screen in that movie. I think it works great in context of the film, and I think songs like Attack That Consumed the Earth work great on their own. Or in the scene when Godzilla's lifted off the ground. I can't remember the song off the top of my head what it's called, but the song when Godzilla's lifted off the ground by the gravity beams. Again, the music that plays during that is fantastic, and it's actually, I would rather listen to it more than I want to listen to the Ifukube Ghidorah stuff. But when I'm saying that, I want to be clear that I am actually referring to Ghidorah's theme song. I know on this channel, I kind of have a tendency to call Rodan's theme song Ghidorah's theme song, which it isn't, and I acknowledge that it isn't. But in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, it's used for both characters, so it's kind of like he originally intended it to be both monsters' themes, or at least that's the way it comes off in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. But I know Ghidorah has his own theme song that is especially fleshed out in the Heisei era. That Heisei era music is specifically what I'm talking about when I say I like the Planet Eater better, because if we're really honest, I'm listening to the Invasion of Astro Monster and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster soundtrack much more than I'm listening to the Planet Eater soundtrack. Either way, I feel bad because this is probably my least favorite Ghidorah theme. Alright, let's end it with probably my favorite song on the soundtrack, definitely the one that surprised me the most, Mothra's song. It's nearly perfect. It would have been perfect, but why? Why is there no singing? You have a choir that overwhelms us the entire soundtrack and you don't use it for Mothra's theme song, the one that is supposed to have a choir or singing at the very least? Like, come on, I don't get it. We're supposed to hear the music, right? We're supposed to hear the singing. We know what they say. We know the lyrics. Just sing it. Other than that, though, this is nearly perfection. It's amazing. I love it. It is the most powerful version of Yūji Koseki's Mothra theme. It's incredibly powerful. It's beautiful. It's got great harmony with the strings and the brass. It's just one of Mothra's best themes to date. I think that the original 1961 theme song is better, and that's what this is based on. This is based on the 61 theme. This isn't based on any of the versions Ifukube did over the years. This is the 61 Mothra theme song updated. It's awesome. I love it. I do think that the flute or whatever that plays, they hit this like wrong note, and it's like consistent throughout the entire soundtrack, so it's clearly not a wrong note in terms of the way it was written. It's just wrong if you listen to the original song and then listen to this one. You're like, it should be a bit higher, just a bit higher, and then it would actually be the way that it was done in the original. But it's okay. You can make slight tweaks like like that. I just think that the flutes could have had a moment where the brass accompanied them. That would have made it perfect. And then at that point, I probably wouldn't have cared that the choir didn't sing, because it would have had everything else I would have ever wanted in Mothra's song. It's like I said, Mothra really is the MVP of this soundtrack, because anytime her theme song is used, whether it be in Battle in Boston, Mothra's song, Queen of the Monsters, A Mass Awakening, or even The Larva, whenever her song is used, it's just amazing. It really elevates the whole song for me, and I know like other people like Nerfman agrees. She really does steal the soundtrack. And walking into King of the Monsters, or walking into the soundtrack anyways, I would have assumed Rodan's gonna be the MVP of the movie. You know, of course I'm gonna like Godzilla the most because he's Godzilla, and I might have some bias for Ghidorah because I've met some of the actors who plays Ghidorah. But when it comes to like which monster I think was gonna surprise me the most, I would have thought it would be Rodan, because Rodan seems to do the most in the trailers and he seems to be really awesome in the trailers. But then you listen to the soundtrack and I go, it's gonna be Mothra. I'm gonna be surprised if it isn't. If another monster manages to surprise me more than Mothra does, that will amaze me. Alright, I know this video is incredibly long, or at least it is on my end. I'm looking at a 32-minute recording. It's gonna be 33 here in like 4 seconds. So I'm gonna wrap up the video here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. I'm sorry this video is so late. I said I was gonna get it out on like, what day is it today? I said I was gonna get it out on Friday, the 24th. And I'm recording this on the 25th because I was at school all day yesterday. And I'm probably not getting it out until Monday the 27th, if we're honest. But there you go. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. D-Man, out.